Have you been told that you do not need to cut out gluten because you have tested negative for celiac disease, but you're continuing to have health and fertility issues? Well, we're going to talk about this question today because I get asked this all the time, and I see a lot of professionals out there telling their patients this, telling their clients this, and it's false. So we're going to talk about this today, and I'm going to give you all the information that you need to know. Hi ladies, welcome back to Fertility Mom. We are in yet again a brand new office and we're dealing with some lighting issues and some sound issues, so bear with me. Today I'm actually going to try and do a very quick video for you because I get asked this all the time and I'm seeing this everywhere. I'm seeing a lot of professionals tell their patients that you tested negative for celiac disease, so you do not have a gluten problem. And that's not true. So we're going to talk about this. I definitely want you to stick to the end because I'm going to tell you what you need to look for and then what you need to do about it. But if you haven't already come to one of my free live fertility masterclasses, definitely hit the description box below or the pinned comment and register for this next one that's coming up. I talk about all sorts of really cool, exciting scientific breakthroughs that have been made in the world of fertility, anti-aging, egg quality, all those kinds of things. So I hope to see you there, and let's get into gluten and fertility. So first, let's go over what is gluten. So gluten is a protein that is found in grains. And the biggest misunderstanding here is that there's just one. But really there are over 1,000 different types of gluten proteins found in different grains. Now you could have an intolerance or an outright allergy to one or more of them. And the problem is that they can cross-react as well. So you could have a really big problem with one type of gluten, and then other types of glutens will hit that same receptor in the same type of way, and you'll have a reaction to those as well. So there's not just one gluten protein that you can have a reaction to. There are many that can be a problem for you. Now, the main one that gets all the press and all the attention is something called alpha gliadin. And this is the main type of gluten found in wheat, barley, and rye. And this is the one that's really associated with celiac disease. So they will test you when they do an antibody test. They will test you for the antibodies to alpha gliadin specifically. Now, you may not have a problem with alpha gliadin. You may have a problem with many of the other ones that can then set off a whole chain reaction in your body. And so this is one of the reasons why celiac testing is not necessarily the best way to know whether you have a gluten problem. There are a couple of really important things that you have to understand about gluten and gluten sensitivity, especially because I see so many people giving the wrong information. But there are a couple of really important things that I want you to know now so that you stick with me for the rest of this video. The first thing is that gluten is the #1 scientifically recognized cause of autoimmune disease. This is an enormous finding in the scientific community, and it's not really disseminated very well, so a lot of people don't know about this. I even worked with some surgeons who were just discovering this for the first time when they were GI specialists themselves. So it's a little bit scary that this information is not out there as much as it should be. The other really important thing that's relevant for us on this channel is that gluten sensitivity is one of the biggest reasons that women may be experiencing unexplained fertility issues. And some gluten experts go so far as to claim that gluten sensitivity is the #1 cause of unexplained fertility issues. It's also a misunderstood thing that everybody who has a gluten problem has celiac disease. But really, everybody who has celiac disease has a gluten problem, but not everybody who has a gluten problem has celiac disease. And I'll break that down a little bit more for you. So approximately 6% of the population has something called gluten intolerance, and only 1% has celiac. So 1% of those people will move on to develop celiac disease, but there's a large portion of people who have a gluten problem or a gluten intolerance that never develop celiac disease and go on to continue to have many, many health issues, because this can cause a lot of problems all throughout the body and all in different systems too. So this is a really important thing to understand, that everybody who has celiac disease has a gluten problem, but not everybody who has a gluten problem will have or develop celiac disease. Before I move on to symptoms and all the types of things that you can do for this, let me know down in the comments, have you had antibody testing done and that's come back negative? Did you not know that you had celiac disease before and been diagnosed as you've been going through your fertility journey? Let me know what's been going on for you. I'm really curious to see, so definitely comment below. There are 1,000 different distinctions between gluten sensitivity and actual celiac disease. And I'm going to do an entirely separate video talking much more in depth and in detail about those things because a short video just isn't going to cut it with that. But gluten sensitivity is not a disease. It is a genetic predisposition that can lead to disease if it's left just rampantly unchecked. This is why it's important that even if you test negative on your alpha-gliadin antibodies, which is what is tested, and it's not even that great of a test. Many other different areas like the Cleveland Clinic, they're starting to use different types of testing because celiac disease is so underdiagnosed. But even if you have tested negative on the antibody test, it does not mean you do not have a gluten sensitivity. Now, remember I said it's a genetic predisposition that can lead to disease. We have a lot of say in how our genes perform, things that they do, and the environmental factors that we can use here. A lot of it is dietary based. So if you have a genetic predisposition to gluten sensitivity and you're having this issue, removing that gluten is the treatment for it. So we have to talk about the symptoms of this so that you kind of have an idea, maybe this is something that I should try in my fertility journey. In terms of symptoms and signs of gluten sensitivity, these can vary widely. You can have intestinal symptoms or you can have extraintestinal symptoms. That's symptoms completely outside your digestive tract. And we're going to go over a bunch of them right now. But there's a main distinction I want to make clear is that those people who have celiac disease, remember 50% of those people never get diagnosed, and the other 50%, sometimes it could take decades for them to get diagnosed. This is because the signs and symptoms can vary greatly from person to person, and they can wax and wane. They can seem better some days or some weeks or some months, and they can be worse others. So some people don't even get to the testing phase for many decades before they are actually diagnosed with celiac disease. Now, when it comes to gluten sensitivity, it can be even worse because you have a very large ramp of symptoms that you can have for many, many years before major disease can set in. Now, you might be wondering, as I go through the symptom list, why is this not more commonly known about? Why is this more diagnosed? Why don't people know about this? And that's because gluten has been called the Great Deceiver, and that it actually exerts an opioid effect on the gut lining so that the actual horrible effects the gluten might be having on your body can go masked and totally numb for years, sometimes even decades, before the body has completely broken down inside and can no longer mask the effects the gluten is having. So this opioid effect that it can exert in some people can be one of the issues and one of the reasons why even celiac disease is not diagnosed very often, but for certain, gluten sensitivity is definitely flying well under the radar and hardly gets recognized. So there are two categories in terms of symptoms for gluten sensitivity. There's intestinal and there's extraintestinal. Extraintestinal meaning outside of the intestinal system, outside of the GI system. So in terms of intestinal, you're looking at diarrhea, constipation, heartburn, bloating, cramping, gas, nausea, weight loss, things like that. So that's one whole category. The other category is extraintestinal, and this is where it can become really scary, especially if you're thinking, well, these can go on for decades before it's ever recognized. Now, in terms of these extraintestinal symptoms, there are a ton. They're hit in every single system. They can be things like joint pain, brain fog, tooth issues like enamel issues or gum issues, canker sores, or nutritional deficiencies. A lot of nutritional deficiencies actually end up being related to gluten sensitivity, especially zinc. Zinc is one of the most common deficiencies that we see in gluten sensitivity. Early menopause. Early menopause is related to gluten sensitivity as well. So this is another thing. If this is something you're experiencing, we have to take a look at gluten as a possible factor in what's happening there. PCOS is another issue that can possibly be related to gluten sensitivity. PCOS is called diabetes of the ovary, and it's actually highly related to gut dysbiosis, gut problems, leaky gut, things like that. Now, we can obviously throw in some probiotics with any kind of PCOS protocol, but we have to kind of look at a layer deeper and think what caused the gut dysbiosis, the gut problem, the gut lining breakdown to begin with. For a lot of people, it ends up being gluten sensitivity, and I find this a lot in my clients. Insomnia is another one. So if you're having a lot of trouble sleeping, this could be one of the factors that's going on there. The list can go on. Multiple sclerosis, Sjögren's, psoriasis, eczema, all of these types of things, and many, many more. Liver issues like fatty liver. If you're seeing fatty liver on a scan, this can be what is one of the culprits there as well. I hope you're getting an idea here just from this small symptom list that I've given you that this can be a huge problem even if you have tested negative for celiac disease. Gluten sensitivity can cause a lot of issues inside the body, and it can cause a lot of major health problems down the line. Magical wardrobe change. I accidentally deleted some of the footage that I needed to complete this video, and I didn't discover it until I went to edit it. So I needed to quickly re-record this one part for you because we just talked about this huge long list of symptoms. And now I need to talk about how to figure out if this is an issue for you and how to really treat it. So if you're thinking gluten sensitivity might be an issue for you, if you are continuing to have health and fertility issues and you really don't know what's going on, this would be a good road to go down even if you've tested negative for celiac. Remember, it's not definite that you don't have gluten sensitivity even if you tested negative for celiac disease. So we need to do a couple of things. Remember, gluten is a family of proteins. There's over 1,000 of them, and each grain has a different gluten protein. So one of the ways that we can figure out, and the gold standard really is to remove gluten for a period of time and then start to reintroduce certain ones in a certain order, again, over a period of time. And this will give you a good idea of which glutens you have a reaction to, what that reaction entails for you, and then it can really guide you on what you do need to keep out, if anything. Some people we find have a reaction to rice, the gluten there being zein, and some people find that they have a reaction to something else, but not rice. It can be very different for everybody depending. So I generally recommend that you take out every grain for a period of time, a minimum of 4 to 6 weeks, and then you start reintroducing things slowly, one thing at a time. Now, if you have an autoimmunity issue, we have to extend that period even longer and then be very intentional and very slow with the things that we do put back in, making sure to monitor some certain details that are going on. So again, we'll take out all grains for a period of time, minimum 4 to 6 weeks, and then we start to reintroduce. And when we reintroduce, we start to look for a certain set of reactions that you might have. Everybody is a little different, and they could be little subtle things like itchiness on the inside of your ears that you may have literally never noticed before until we take it out and reintroduce it back in. So one thing I caution you about when going grain-free for a period of time is that you have a tendency to drop off with carbohydrates. This is not about going low carb. This is about taking away a potential trigger for your body. So make sure you're eating plenty of carbohydrates using fruits and starchy vegetables because, again, it's not about going low carb. It's about finding the trigger if there is one. Well, I tried to make it short. I didn't make it short. I'm really sorry about that. I hope you learned a lot from this video, especially if you're somebody who has been told you don't need to take out gluten if you don't have celiac disease. I hope this kind of helped to tell you why that is not true. Definitely hit me down in the comments below. I hope you found this video helpful, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye, ladies.